Welcome to the Real Deal Smite God reveal, featuring Fafnir, the Norse Lord of Glittering Gold.
Soon I will own everything in this land. Even you.
You guys have that one god that you always have a good time with? Like, you could have a miserable ass day, so you boot up your favorite MOBA, or rather the MOBA you blew the most cash on, pick this one champion and immediately start feeling better? For me, that god is Fafnir. I don't know, I just love everything about this guy. His design, his look, his abilities, everything is just on point with him for me. Everything except for the fact that his name is too damn close to Fenrir. Seriously, I still get the names mixed up sometimes. So Fafnir is a single target lockdown support tank that plays like Shyvana from League, but with a major gold income increase. That may sound OP, but he's really only OP if you know about his subtle bonuses. So let's get into his kit and explain what they are. Fafnir's passive is Endless Greed. Fafnir gains 2 bonus gold from all enemy kills and assists, including minions. Fafnir also gains bonus protections based on the amount of gold he is currently holding. The bonuses gained is capped at 20 protections from 1000 gold in hand. This passive is extremely good. The main thing that makes it good is the gold bonus. Being able to gain an extra 2 gold per minion is a huge advantage. It makes it so you can purchase items earlier and gain a power spike that much earlier. The protections is a nice buff, but not the main thing to keep in mind. It's the equivalent of a tier 2 defense item worth of stats, plus the rate of the gold to protections conversion is 1 protection per 50 gold, which is easy to cap due to the bonus. A thing to keep in mind is that the passive will not work on minions being attacked by the tower. Not sure if that's a glitch or not, but all things considered, it seems fair. Now I'm going to talk about Fafnir's ultimate next, since like most of the Norse gods, it's a stance change ability that affects the rest of his abilities. Fafnir's ult is Draconic Corruption. Fafnir transforms into a terrifying dragon and is untargetable during the process. When he emerges in dragon form, nearby enemies are poisoned, taking 160 plus 40% of Fafnir's magical damage 3 times over 3 seconds. He remains in this form for up to 40 seconds or until the ability is activated again. As a dragon, his abilities have additional effects and his basic attack changes to a Dragon Breath that deals 40 plus 10% of Fafnir's magical damage 3 times per second. Dragon Breath cannot proc item hit effects. What the fuck is this shit? You telling me that Fafnir's Dragon Breath would be too OP if I got Gem of Isolation, Demonic Grip, and Polynomicon? Shit, why you gotta be busting my nuts like this, Hi-Rez? No, but really, Fafnir's Dragon Breath is really good on its own for shredding enemy health bars. Although it is a bad idea to build items that proc on auto attacks, since you'll never be able to proc them in dragon form, and Fafnir's normal auto attacks are the slowest and weakest in the game. If you wanted Pen, you'd be better off to get Void Stone, since his playstyle is all about getting up in the opponent's face and locking them down. So that's all there is to talk about, right? Well, no. Remember those subtle bonuses I mentioned? Well, they all involve how his ult works. So the transformation time is about 3 seconds, and the transformation does count as a self-banish and CC removal. So this ult makes for a great escape tool from damage. Like with most banishes in Smite, it is pretty easy to play around and to set up your damaging abilities against Fafnir. Although when Fafnir gets out of his dragon form, he self-stuns for 3 seconds, but he's still CC immune during that time. I know that doesn't make too much sense, but I know this because Nox's Cripple and Root ability doesn't connect with Fafnir during that time. So don't use your CC abilities when Fafnir is getting out of his ult, because you'll be throwing the ability away. Now the damage the ult applies is okay. I mean, it gets people out of an area, but you only really get the damage off if you get the enemy stunned or trapped in the radius. Assuming the opponent isn't dishwater retarded to not figure out how to walk out of a circle. The last thing I want to talk about is the whole activating the ability again. Why or when would you activate the ult again to get out of Fafnir's dragon form? Seems silly to not want to be a dragon. Well, there are 2 good times to change back into dwarf form. The first one is realizing your ult duration is almost up and the enemy is coming, so you ult to stun yourself before the damage comes in. The second time would be in the fountain. Not only will the stun be over by the time you buy your items, but the cooldown timer will start up, allowing you to ult again sooner than if you just let the duration timer expire. Well, I think I've talked enough about Fafnir's ult, for now. So let's get into his normal abilities. Fafnir's one is Cursed Strength. Fafnir hurls his hammer forward, dealing 260 plus 50% of Fafnir's magical damage to enemies in its path. If Fafnir hits a god, the hammer stops short and stuns them for 1.5 seconds. The stun god also radiates out a cursed pulse, slowing them and nearby enemies by 40% for 3 seconds. In dragon form, this ability deals 130 plus 25% increased damage that ticks 3 times over 3 seconds. Also, the Cursed Pulse shreds 20% protections in addition to slowing. Man, I love this ability. Every time I land it, I always chuckle. I swear, it never gets old. Even though this is Fafnir's main lane clearer and CC ability, the CC is quite weak for a support character. Comparing it to Ymir's Frost Breath, it lasts almost a whole second longer than Fafnir's, and unlike Ymir's, Fafnir's stun can only affect one god. Plus, the slow is actually hard to land on multiple enemies since the AoE effect doesn't go far. It's a good ability to set up for your team though. Now in Dragon form, a common thing you'll notice with Fafnir's abilities is that they do the same thing as his normal abilities but shred a lot more health and armor. Which makes sense seeing how in his lore he's a poison dragon, it breathes acid. Too bad his Dragon form shot isn't as funny as his hammer shot. Let's hear it one more time. Fafnir's 2 is Coerce. Fafnir coerces his allies into fighting harder, boosting attack speed by 50% for 5 seconds and self-healing for 170 plus 40% of Fafnir's magic damage. While Coerce is active, Fafnir deals 25% bonus magic damage whenever the affected ally damages an enemy. In Dragon form, this ability has a larger area of effect and can buff multiple allies. So this ability seems pretty straightforward, right? I mean, you put it on your ADC for a huge team fight advantage and get to listen to all this wonderful banging. It sounds especially good when you put the buff on Scotty when she places her ice under a minion wave. Go ahead. Do it. I fucking dare you. Unfortunately, this ability is so underwritten that not only is this a major hashtag fix this shit already Hi-Rez moment, but the Smite wiki actually got information wrong about this ability. One of the things about the ability itself that needs clarifying is the healing. The way it's worded, it seems the ability heals whoever gets the buff and the scaling is from Fafnir. That's not the case. What happens is that Fafnir always gets the healing effect, regardless who gets the buff. Sure, it's a good self-sustain ability, but a bad support ability. Oh, this is the least confusing part of the ability, by the way. Now, a major fucking detail that Hi-Rez left out here is that any items that Fafnir buys that can proc from abilities will proc, even if the buff is applied to a physical damage god. Why in the unholy fuck is this not mentioned at all? You'd think that mentioning that building Soul Reaver on Fafnir is OP since he can give the true damage buff to the ADC, but hey, I guess they pay that in turn by the character count, so fuck that. I won't go over all the items that can or cannot proc with this ability, but I will leave a link to Duke Sloth's video that goes over the topic. The last thing to mention is the extra damage output. After all my games and my research I've done, I've come to the conclusion that I have no idea where the extra damage output comes from. The way it's written, you'd think Fafnir gets the damage buff, but that's not true unless you apply the buff to yourself. The person who gets the buff gets the extra damage. Now the confusing part is where the percent damage comes from. I'm pretty certain it's 25% of Fafnir's damage that's applied to the god. However, the wiki says that it buffs the allies' abilities by 25%. I think it's the former because these extra damage numbers are pitiful, so I'm pretty certain it's a percent of Fafnir's damage. Unless all the characters I've been giving the buff have gone full tank without me noticing, which I highly doubt. Something the wiki mentions that the game doesn't is that even if the damage from Coerce kills an enemy, the kill is given to the one with the buff, not Fafnir. The thing is, I have footage of me kill stealing from an Anubis with this ability.
I'm a bad mother. Shut your mouth.
I may not be a mind reader, but I know exactly what this Anubis is thinking right now. I actually think this is the absolute worst written ability in Smite. Not only is this ability inconsistent twice, but it's so confusing that the wiki is wrong trying to fill in the missing gaps. Oh my fucking god, Hi-Rez! Why can't you write a fucking ability worth for shit? Why is this so hard for you guys to get right? In Dragon form you can hit multiple allies with this ability, so try and find the biggest cluster to throw up on. Fafnir's 3 is Underhanded Tactics. Fafnir leaps to a target location and executes a despicable strike, dealing 240 plus 60% of Fafnir's magical damage and disarming enemies in front of him for 2 seconds. In Dragon form, Fafnir can leap much further. Also, this ability deals 120 plus 30% increased damage that ticks 3 times over 3 seconds, and Fafnir stuns the enemy god closest to him for 2 seconds, in addition to disarming. That's a pretty overhyped title for a jump. Regardless, this is a pretty good, but weird ability. The weird part is how the damage and CC is applied. Unlike all the other jumps in the game where the damage is applied to a radius around the god, Fafnir deals his damage in a cone in front of him. It's a little weird to get used to this since you need to undershoot where you want to jump to apply the damage in CC. Also in Dragon form, I don't know why the stun and disarm duration is the same time. I mean, the radius isn't that large that you can easily jump 2 guys at once. Sure, it happens, but not that often. Now, there is a cool trick to keep in mind about this ability. Fafnir's Dwarf and Dragon form are on 2 separate cooldown timers. Now the cool trick is that Fafnir can perform a double jump to catch up or get away from the team fight. Okay, I mean it's not that cool, but it's still very useful to know if you want to be better than the average Fafnir player. Well, that's all there is to say about Fafnir. Like I said in the beginning, he is OP once you know how to exploit those little bonuses that Hi-Rez doesn't fucking mention! Sorry. He is quite devastating while in his Dragon form and is really good at hopping on and taking out the backline. Just keep an eye on the countdown timer while in his ult form and you should be doing alright.